Just when you thought it was over, we started it over. Just a different chapter, but still part of the story. Spirit of a patriot, but the heart of a soldier. If you wasn't part of the grind, you can't be part of the glory. We right here, we ain't going nowhere. It's your worst nightmare. We back and they all scared. Every year is our year. The defense is top tier. Whenever you see that red and blue, it's a new era. They too scared of us. I don't know who said it was over, but they lied. The truth never miss, kicking down the door like who let him in. We been grinding and we ain't worried about the small talk. We big timers.
Yeah, can't believe it, we leaving. Yeah, we achieving, can't be beaten. Say it loud, say it proud from the top of my lungs. Hometown, second crown, you ain't trying with us. Around this time, you really can't deny. You can't run, you can't hide when the Patriot comes.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Patriots Friday Night Lights podcast. Today we have a special guest, Antwon. You can kind of start off talking a little bit about yourself before we kind of get into everything.
Well, I'm a Jets beat reporter. I work for the New York Daily News, and I've been covering them for 3 years. But I've been also covered the Dolphins previously and some other teams too as well.
Okay, definitely.
Nice.
That sounds good. Okay, so being a Jets reporter, can you just give us a little bit of a feel of, because we see it on national TV, especially, with the Mike Greenbergs and everybody else of the world. Like, what is that, like, experience like to have to cover the team as far as, the topics or just some of the things that went on there this past year? If we could point to a situation, the Woody Johnson, Nixon, Jerry Judy's trade over a Madden rated or something like that. Like how are those things?
Well, I think some of that was exaggerated, but I mean, it was a bit of a soap opera. I mean, I think a lot of people understand that. I mean, anytime you have Aaron Rodgers on the roster, I mean, it's definitely going to bring a certain amount of attention. And then on top of that, you fire your coach, you fire your GM during the season, and then everything just kind of falls apart. And then on top of that, you had expectations. Well, they had expectations of reaching the Super Bowl and, getting to the playoffs for the first time since 2010. And obviously that didn't happen. So when you're not winning, then I think people want to know why you're not winning. And then certain things come out and, you get kind of the best that you had with the Jets too. I mean, last year wasn't necessarily great either. I mean, obviously it was more or less like Aaron getting hurt and, him trying to recover and trying to come back before the season ended. Obviously that didn't happen because they got eliminated. But yeah, this year was definitely a bit, with a lot of topics and everything like that.
Yeah, and kind of, we just got our new head coach, where you just mentioned that the Jets fired theirs. I don't know if you've heard anything about, what they're kind of looking for. I know Rex Ryan was kind of up there, but it seems like that was not really the most serious kind of thing. It doesn't really seem like he's going to be a legit candidate, but I'm just kind of curious if you've heard anything specific with their head coaching search.
Well, they have to hire a GM too. So it's kind of like I think that's going to happen probably first before head coach there. But I mean, they've interviewed between the two positions 30 people. So I mean, I think if I had to guess in terms of head coach, I would say Aaron Glenn is somebody that I think they really covet in the organization. Obviously, he played there, was a scout there after he got done playing as well, knows the organization in and out, and obviously the owner, Woody Johnson, too, as well. I would think him and probably a guy like Brian Flores, who, has some history, obviously, with the Patriots, too, and, was the coach of the Dolphins as well for 3 years. I would think those two are probably the likely favorites at the moment to coach, but it's kind of hard to say when, they don't have a GM in place. Until that happens, I think, we'll have a more idea of what they're probably thinking as coach. But for what I'm hearing, I think Aaron Glenn is probably the guy that I would think is ahead slightly at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask too, because is that like a philosophy amongst the Jets that they like to bring in these defensive-minded head coaches, the Rex Ryans, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, Robert Saleh,
Todd Bowles,
Todd Bowles. Those guys. Usually, realistically, their defenses are usually a pain in the ass to play. We're gonna call it for what it is. But do you feel like the organization is at a pivotal? Well, the pivotal point probably would have started a long time ago. But do you feel like they're at a point where they maybe need an offensive-minded coach to come in?
No, I think they just need to pick the right person. I don't think that necessarily matters. I think you're trying to pick a CEO of an organization. I don't think you necessarily need a guy that's, defensive minded or offensive minded too. You're trying to find a guy that can, build a culture builder. And I think that's what you need, especially a team that has not made the playoffs since 2010 and 14 years. Like, you need to change that culture. You need to figure out what's not working, what hasn't worked to this point, and change that. And then that way you can, try to, work to, get back to being relevant in the league too, as well. I mean, the Jets have some, good parts there as far as players. I mean, good young nucleus and Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, among other people. But, they obviously, Quentin, he's a little bit older than those guys, but
I like Avery too. I like his brother. He turned out
Quincy,
very well. Very well, yeah.
But I mean, I think they just need need to change this. They just need to change some things as far as what they do organizational wise. So I don't think they necessarily need one or the other. I just think they just need a CEO that can oversee everything and just has his hand in not only just the offense but the defense as well.
Yeah. What are the odds that you think Rodgers stays? Because that's like, you're kind of talking about like culture building and, finding an identity and stuff. And I think he's kind of the biggest question mark when it comes to the players at this moment. Personally, I hate him, so I want him gone. I've never liked him. I can't stand him. But it just, there's stories all the time that are kind of contradicting themselves. So I'm kind of curious what you think of what are the odds of Rodgers staying?
It's hard to put a high percent. Although I will say this, I don't think he's going to come back, but I don't know. Yeah. I can't say that 100% sure because again, like, they don't have a GM, they don't have a coach in place. Right. I think if you have a guy like Aaron Glenn, I think the chances of that even goes down because you have a first-year head coach. They're trying to implement their program and trying to change the culture. You don't want to be undermined by a guy. And it's no disrespect to Aaron. Like, I have nothing against the guy. I think he was great to the media. I mean, obviously he's a future Hall of Famer, but he comes with a lot of baggage. I mean, I think everybody understands that. So I think the chance of him coming back is, if I had to put a percentage on it, I probably would say 15% right now.
Okay.
I mean, if you get a first-time head coach, I think it would be even lower than that because he didn't get along with Woody Johnson, and they had a little bit of beef there. Obviously, the stories about how Woody wanted him benched when he was injured, battling through some of the injuries that he had there. So I think on both sides, I think kind of just want to move on, but I don't think both sides want to necessarily say that. I think from the Jets' perspective, they don't want to do anything to say, well, we got rid of Aaron Rodgers, who is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. That would look bad on their part. And I don't think Aaron wants to do anything to kind of piss off Jets fans either. So you're just kind of in this weird place. But eventually you're going to have to make a decision. I imagine that'll come once you get a GM and coach in place. But I have a hard time seeing Aaron Rodgers returning. I think they're going to, I don't want to say completely rebuild, but I think you're going to restructure the roster in a major way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Because like, I know he was on the Pat McAfee show, Rodgers, and he was talking about like, whatever the GM and head coach is will kind of determine what he's going to do, which I don't know, the way it was worded was kind of funky, but yeah, it just seems like he's also kind of waiting on the Jets, and they're both kind of waiting on each other in a way. So it's just because he was talking, I think it was like the week after the season ended, he was supposed to talk with Woody Johnson or someone and kind of like discuss the future, but I haven't really heard anything of how that meeting went. I don't know if you've heard anything, but I know he was
not specifically. I know they did meet. I know he met with Woody and Christopher, his brother, and some other people in the organization, because everybody has exit meetings. All the players have exit meetings at the end of the year, just trying to figure out, what people need to work on or what things they can definitely do organization-wise and stuff like that. So they did meet. Nothing really has come out with that. Again, like, you're kind of in this weird place where, Aaron he's not owed any more guaranteed money on his contract. So if he does return, the Jets would have to also pick up an option bonus as well. In addition to that, like, you're also putting yourself in a bad cap situation too already. And the Jets aren't necessarily in a good cap situation, but if you keep him, you're even in a worse cap situation. So that's another reason why I think they may turn it over, because you could just punt on 25 and that's fine. I mean, I think, they're going to have like $20 million to spend, at least at the moment, until they start releasing some people. But they're not going to contend this year. I mean, the Bills are the top of the division, and then now
Right.
you got the Patriots that they started the process a year ago. I think they're in a good place. They have $131 million to spend in free agency. I think they're going to be major players to get Drake May some help. I think they're a team to look out for. The Dolphins are kind of in this weird place too, where I think they probably should rebuild, but then again, you got McDaniel there, you got Chris Greer. I think they're going to be doing probably what the Jets are doing a year from now. So, in a roundabout way, if you're a Patriots fan, I think you're in a good spot because you started the process earlier than the other two teams, and I think that gives them a heads up. Not saying they're going to contend with Buffalo immediately, but I think it's a point where maybe the next year or two they could be the second best team in that division.
Yeah, I said the same thing a couple days ago. Like, just being realistic, I feel like the Patriots personnel can catch up to Buffalo's because right now, they have some good players, but it does look like it's a little bit more Josh Allen, which is why, in my opinion, why he's in the MVP conversation, because we were just talking about stats. Then clearly Lamar won that already. You understand what I'm saying? So I do feel like, just watching the couple of games, the two games that we did play, obviously the one was the backups, but backup on backup, they won the game. And the first one, they hung with them, So I think getting Drake May the proper help, bringing in some free agents, I definitely think Javon Holland should be, right up there along with the T. Higgins and everything else. You probably want to bring in a true free safety because the guys that we have in there now, Mapu, Peppers, and Duggar, they're all essentially kind of the same player, you can say. Strong safeties, play better towards the line of scrimmage. You can move them around a little bit, versatile. I don't think the Patriots can continuously get away with that. Trying to stick one of them in the single high in the middle of the field. But back to the Jets, not to even get too far into the Patriots at this moment, but back to the Jets. Do you feel like did they succumb, like did they fall victim to like a lot of teams thinking that they were a little bit closer than what they were? Like I can Green Bay, Miami, somewhat in a sense. A lot of teams went out and paid these quarterbacks and paid them big money because they felt like they were at that level, and some of them didn't produce the type of fruits that we was looking for.
I think, well, you go back to 22. I mean, the Jets had a top 5 defense. I mean, their defense was elite. I mean, they just needed a quarterback. So, and Zach Wilson clearly was not it. So they needed to change. They needed to figure out what they needed to do. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers comes available, and you're thinking, okay, Aaron, off the 22 season, he didn't necessarily have the best year, but you're thinking we don't necessarily need like MVP Aaron Rodgers.
Better than that. That's all you need.
You just need a above average quarterback play.
Right.
And then of course he gets hurt, 4 plays in 23. And then you never know. I mean, and then now he returns back from the Achilles injury in 24. And clearly, at least at first, he was not the same. Like you just clearly see like he was just struggling like with movement there, especially side to side. He was originally a statue. And then, when he did start to move a little bit better, he got hurt. He ended up having a knee injury, hamstring injury as well, and that really limited him most of the year. So I mean, you can't fault them for going forward, especially considering you had a coaching staff that was already 2 years in. So at that point, you needed to do something or realize like you're going to lose your job if you don't. So I'm not
right.
fault them at all for going forward. It just didn't work, and now you have to start all over again.
Right? Yeah. Rodgers was the right choice, right? They needed a quarterback, right? It was almost obvious that like that was the missing piece, right? Especially with having Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, like you were saying, like it was definitely just like a quarterback away, and it was just, I guess, the wrong quarterback. I mean, Rodgers is right; he's a Hall of Famer, but maybe he's just not meant to be in this type of.
And he's older. He's older.
Right,
I mean,
older.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he's 41 years old. I mean, at the time when he tore his Achilles, he's 39. So typically, older players get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I think honestly, my opinion on it all, I think it was his you could say it's just overall in life or anything, arrogance. You understand what I'm saying? It's the arrogance of you know what I mean, the way if some of the reports that was coming out is true, like you said, like yeah, he was nice to the media, but some like a little smug. You know, he is a little smug. Or like when the responsibilities is coming down, like, oh, Aaron, what's this? Oh, he's supposed to run the red line. The red line's this. You know what I mean? I think
Mike Williams situation. Yeah, I didn't necessarily like that either. I don't like. I mean, it's one thing to criticize a player behind the scenes. I think that's fair, but to do it out in public and double down on it as well, I was like, yeah, especially he wasn't necessarily playing very well either at the moment. So.
Right.
Yeah, not everybody can be Tom. That's why I have so much respect for Tom Brady, because not only because he played at a high level at the age that he did for so long, but just, the leader that he was. I mean, he was like a, bona fide leader, whether it was in, New England or also, Tampa, the little time he was there. And he changed the culture there. Like, I think to the point where they're still winning. They might not win Super Bowls, but they're still in the playoffs year after year. And like, he really changed that. That's what you need for an organization. If you're down, like Tampa was down for years, and then Tom comes in there, changed the culture, wins the Super Bowl, and then, they're making the playoffs, I believe 5 years in a row. So yeah, that's why I have a lot of respect for him. Not everybody's Tom Brady. Not everybody can be. And I think Aaron Rodgers I don't think he's that type of leader. I think he might be more of a leader by example type of role, but he definitely isn't the same type of leader that Tom was, at least for what I understand.
Or even Peyton. And that's why I was telling people when they were, can he make the same effect that Peyton and Tom Brady? I'm like, those are two guys that just, like I said, is Aaron a Hall of Fame? Yeah, like, we're not even going to dispute that.
He's one of the best quarterbacks ever.
Undeniable. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Like you said, when we're talking about culture and you're talking about winning championships, I think it goes a little bit deeper than, well, this quarterback can make this throw at this different angle, because we see talented quarterbacks lose all the time. Look at Justin Herbert. If you ask me, if you want to go off of straight pure talent, well, he's probably in the top 5.
Oh, yeah.
But when we're talking about putting that stuff on the field, we haven't seen him won, a playoff game yet. So it was just hard for me to like get behind, and people were like, "Oh, you're a hater," because I have no reason to hate on the Jets. You feel me? Respectfully, no disrespect, but I have no reason to hate on the Jets. But I was just never really like seeing it that this was about to happen, because I'm like, so you expect him to win a Super Bowl? And I think the last year he won a Super Bowl was the last year the Jets was in the playoffs. Am I correct?
Yes, 2010. Yes, that is correct.
Crazy. That's a crazy situation, and just expectations alone. We'll give Aaron this. He looked pretty decent down the stretch. he looked all right. Well, I was like, maybe, if that Achilles kind of healed up a little bit more, I don't know what it looks like next year. Maybe it might be effective.
Yeah, I think he's still a serviceable quarterback. He's not what he once was, but I still think if you look at the 32 starting job, like he could start for a team.
Oh yeah.
It's just a matter of like who that is. But you just have to know that you're not getting, old school Aaron Rodgers. You're getting one that may show flashes of that. Like we've seen flashes of that, like Miami and the 2 games against the Dolphins and some of the other teams as well. But you're not going to get it consistently like how you was. That's the part of getting old. Right. Like you show flashes of it, but you can't do it every day. You can't do it every night. Even Tom Brady reached that point in his last year where he was not the same player that he was. So, and then and on top of it, Aaron Rodgers will be almost 42 years old when that season starts as well. So you also have to factor that in. So if you're going to bring him on your team, you got to make sure you really have to protect him really well. And you have to have a lot of skill position players that can really help him out, because he's no longer the guy that can, carry a team on his back like I used to do in Green Bay. Like you're going to have to really help him in order to, get to the playoffs and have some success.
Right. And with those position players like Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, right, I've been seeing kind of chatter about them wanting to request trades and, kind of different scenarios of them leaving the team. I wanted to see, what are your thoughts on that? And like, if you've heard anything.
Well, I think Sauce wants to be there. Sauce wants to be with the Jets. It's just a matter of, do you give him a contract extension? Because him, Garrett, Brees, Jermaine Johnson, they're all eligible for a contract extension. Anybody in the 22 class is now eligible for extensions now that the regular season's over. So I think Sauce wants to stay there. Like we've asked him, like he really wants to be part of the solution We're trying to bring the Jets back, out of this quote unquote, no pun intended, dark place that they've been in the last 20 years. Garrett is a different situation. Like, I don't know. I asked him point blank in the locker room, would he sign a contract extension with the Jets? And then he kind of danced around the question a little bit.
Oh, you were the one that asked that question?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Well, yeah, we're in the locker. Well, I'm in the locker room, but yeah,
I
asked him point blank, and he kind of danced around the question a little bit. So he was very non-committal. So it's been a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation. Well, would he ask for a trade there too, as well, especially considering the Jets may try to go to him with a contract extension. If he says no, then and if a team comes to you, like, yeah, we want to get Garrett Wilson for a first-round pick and maybe some other picks. Maybe you listen, but I don't think they should actively trade him because he's 24, 25 years old. Like, no, he's a top 20 receiver.
Oh,
like, I want to say top 10, but I think he's top 20 receiver in the league.
I would give him top 10. You talking about talent? I mean, because it's the same thing with
Jordan. He could be, yes.
They look like with a quarterback.
I think
that's why I try not to take too much from certain receivers in Garrett Wilson's class, because it's like clearly you see that's somebody that a defensive coordinator is not going to look past him when he's coming up with the game plan.
Yeah.
His name is going to be on that board. So Garrett Wilson, like, do you feel like the Devontae Adams trade kind of influenced that a little bit, or you just feel like he's just might be non-committal towards the team overall?
I think he's frustrated with them losing like the last 3 years there. I think he's frustrated with the lack of target. Like, Aaron was times Aaron was just clearly looking at Devontae's way, especially when after the trade happened. Devontae's targets were far more than what Garrett's was. Garrett was their number one receiver, and then Devontae came, and then obviously him and Aaron, they had 8 years together in Green Bay. It's kind of like, you're dating a girl, and then your ex-girlfriend kind of moves down the street or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you may not be with, but you have a certain amount of chemistry that you just, it is kind of undeniable. And it's kind of undeniable chemistry between him and Devontae to the point where he can trust Devontae because they have like that, they have 8 years together. Garrett, him and Garrett, like, this is really the first year they've been playing. I mean, sure, he was there in 23, but, he ended up getting hurt. So he wasn't there a whole lot. He didn't get to have that same rapport. So I think that his frustration is a lot of different levels, but I think, the lack of targets, I think if they were winning, I don't think it would be a problem. But when you're losing and then you're not getting the targets or getting the ball, then, yeah, it's going to be a problem for certain receivers. So I think it's that in addition to the Jets just, not winning. I mean, they won 5 games this year, which I no matter how, if you whatever you thought about the Jets, I don't think most people thought they would have won more than 5 games, especially with the talent on that roster.
Right. That's the thing, is like there was like talks of being Super Bowl champions and contenders for the for everything, and then it ended up being the 5 and whatever, but
5 and 12.
And with the Jets,
I saw 10. I saw 10 at a minimum. I'm not gonna lie. I thought about 10. 5th seed in the AFC.
I had them out of the playoffs, but I had them with 9 wins because I was thinking, you're relying on a lot of older people, especially Aaron Rodgers, to come back and just be how it was. But I was like, I didn't think they'd be a playoff team, but I didn't think they'd be as bad. I don't think anybody thought they'd be as bad as what they were.
Right. Yeah. And like with the Jets, they're used to, like, as an organization, they're kind of used to these types of seasons, but where there was so much expectation. Like, I've never seen this kind of expectation for a Jets team ever. Like, right, where you're in the locker room, like, were you able to kind of notice a difference with, going into the season and then just seeing how it happened, like how much it affected the team?
Yeah. I mean, when at the beginning of the year, it's like it's high expectation. Like, people were thinking championships or playoffs, Super Bowl. Like, they're excited for the season to start. And I think most NFL locker rooms are like that to an extent where, you have this optimism when you're 0-0. Like, it's just different there. Like, you have hope, especially coming from an off season where, you get Aaron Rodgers back healthy. It was talked even before Devontae Adams trade that it's going to happen and all that stuff too. And then the season starts and then reality kind of sets in. Although with the Jets, it was kind of like, okay, they lost to the 49ers. 49ers were in the Super Bowl last year. That's not really a big deal. When I started to think things were turning for the worse was, the Titans game, even though they won that game, but I was like, they don't look good at all. Like, they look like a bottom of the league team in that game. They ended up pulling it out, and they ended up beating them, and then they beat the Patriots on Thursday Night Football, and then people were thinking, oh yeah, they're going to go on the run, and then
Right.
all of a sudden they lost 11 out of the next 13 games, which is just crazy. Just to say. And then for me, like when I knew the season was probably like they definitely weren't going to make the playoffs when they lost to the Patriots in Foxborough, I was like, and then Drake May went out of that game with a concussion, and they still found a way to lose that game. And I was like, yes, this is not a football team. Like to lose that game, manner that happened to a team that, especially with Jacoby Brissett in there, because I thought Drake May was like carving them up when he was in there, like at least for a little bit. I was like, this team is done. This team is not, it's not a playoff team at all.
Oh, because they were supposed to win. That was one of the games the Patriots, the Jets ended up on the wrong end of that. Oh, when you throw for 250 yards and don't commit a turnover and score this amount of points, every other team was such and such an O, but now it's such and such a one in the Jets. That I was looking at it like I was surprised. I was like, well, damn, the Patriots kind of snuck that one out because it looked like the way Gerard and them was coaching.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask you about the Robert Saleh firing. Like, what was the mood of the locker room like afterwards that it happened? Like, because sometimes when you see head coaches like get fired, like I always wonder, just being on the other side, like how does the players truly feel, regardless of what you're telling us at the podium? Because I know it's politically correct or what you should say, decorum wise, but like, what do you feel like the mood was in that locker room when they let go of Robert Saleh?
People thought it was premature. I mean, they were 2-3 at the time. I mean, you still had, 12 more games in the season. And then it wasn't like they started out 0-5. If they started out 0-5, I would understand, because 0-5 is like a death sentence in the NFL. Like you're done. You're not gonna rally to make the playoffs. But 2-3, I'm like, they're literally right there. Like, had they beaten the Bills that Monday night, the game after that, they would have been in first place. And then it just fire them. Like I think that really lost some people in the locker room, to be quite honest with you. Some people just felt like it was just the wrong move, and they hated it, and it was just going to create turmoil because in NFL, like other sports, like you can fire your coach mid-season and possibly make the playoffs. Like we've seen it in the NBA plenty of times, and NHL and Major League Baseball, but football is such a short span of games that you fire your coach mid-season, like chances are you're not making the playoffs, like at all. You're done.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't understand the move at the time at 5 games in, because I was like, they're not gonna make the playoffs. Like, and then you got a guy, Jeff Albrecht, who really nice guy, but he's asking to be a DC and a CEO of a team at the same time, and then it's just very hard to do. And again, that's what you end up getting. You only win 3 games under Albrecht. They went 3-9 under Albrecht, so that pretty much says it all.
Yeah.
Okay, quick before you leave, because this is good information. I love it. Do you think the Jets take a flyer on Jalen Milroe in the draft, or what's the direction do you feel like? Because like you said, GM, head coach, and obviously quarterback. Those are three of the most important things you need. So starting with the quarterback, who do you think could be in the Jets uniform next year?
Well, I mean, in terms of quarterback, like I would not reach for a quarterback in this draft. Like I think there's 2 quarterbacks that are first round talents, and that's it. Like you got Cam Ward, who I think the Titans are clearly going to take. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft from Miami. Shedeur Sanders comes with some questions there, but he's better than everybody else, like other than Cam Ward to me. So I think he'll go either second to the Browns, or the Giants are right there too at number 3. I think it just makes a lot more sense for the Jets. Miro, like you can't take him at 7, so it's way too high. So I don't think you take a quarterback in the first round. I think you look at the defensive side of the ball, or maybe opposite wide receiver next to Garrett Wilson. Maybe in round 2 or round 3. Or what I would do also, I would just got Tyrod Taylor, who's still on the roster. He's under contract for this year. Keep him. You can sign some type of veteran to compete with him. You also have Jordan Travis, who out of Florida State, who you drafted last year as well, who's still kind of recovering from his ankle injury. Have those guys just battle it out, see who the top quarterback is. Because honestly, you're not going to win that. Like the Jets are not going to compete for anything really next year, other than, maybe win 7 games possibly, if they get the defense right and, add some skilled position players. But, I think next year is going to be a bit of a wash. And then you try to get your cap situation, kind of like what the Patriots did, in 24, get your cap situation ready for 26, where you have a lot of money to spend. And now you're ready to contend. And then once you do that, you put a quarterback in the middle of that. You surround them with, you try as much talent as you can. And then you put a quarterback in the middle of that. And then you're ready to roll in 26 with whoever that is.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was great talking to you. Where can people find you?
Just my name, Antwon Staley. All social media platforms there. Also find my work at the New York Daily News as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate having you on, man.
Thank you so much.
Made my night. Thank you.
Y'all take it easy.
Yeah, you too. All right. So let's get.
Yeah, that was good. That was real good.
How we doing?
What's up, guys?
Hey,
another special guest. Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Vegas Matty, so I cover the Vegas sports scene, and I'm also the largest proxy for the football contests in Las Vegas. So I don't know if you guys have heard of like the Circus Sports Million, the Circus Survivor contest. So we run a service that puts picks in for people who are out of state like yourselves. So if you want to sign up for the contest, you would need somebody like me to put the picks in for you. And that's been running a service for, it's going to be going in next year, it'll be 17 years. So
nice.
we're one of the OGs in that
space. Congratulations. Nice. I like those helmets in the background. I ain't gonna lie.
I appreciate that. My wife's a huge Tom Brady fan and was rooting for the Patriots quite a bit during their heyday. So got Gronkowski right there. And then Edelman, we actually went to the Super Bowl when he won MVP. So he's got Super Bowl MVP inscribed in that. So
nice.
There's 2 keepers. Awesome. I had to take my Raiders ones down.
I know you guys love that he's part owner now, right?
I was going to say, speaking of
absolutely. Yeah, she's got some high hopes. I'm still on the fence because I don't know how much he can do, honestly, with Mark Davis there. So he's got to just relinquish control, and let Tom do his thing.
It sounds like he's trying to get Ben Johnson. Sounds like he's trying to get Ben Johnson there. It sounds like it might already kind of be a done deal. Seems like everything's leaning towards Ben Johnson going to the Raiders.
I think that's the hope. Yeah, I mean, that's the name that everyone's kind of talking about here and excited about, and rightfully so. I'm originally from Chicago, so it's kind of been a tug of war between my 2 teams that I root for, the Bears and the Raiders. But I think the Raiders are just willing to go all out as far as money goes. I think they can throw a lot of money at them, which is crazy when you think about it, because I think they're still paying Gruden and they're still paying Josh McDaniels. So I don't know, like they're probably willing to go in debt forever if it means that the team's going to turn around. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think the interesting thing when you compare the Bears situation and the Raiders, the quarterback situation is number one, first and foremost. What do you do? Do you want to coach Caleb Williams, or do you want to coach basically whoever you want? Because I think that's even though they're picking number 6 in the draft, they could potentially move up. They can go out and trade for a guy like Hendon Hooker from the Lions, who he's familiar with, and maybe tutor him along. They have Aiden O'Connell there, who's not really that great, but you can still draft somebody. I think Antwon said it best. There's 2 far and away good quarterbacks in this draft. If you don't get one of those 2 guys, maybe you take a guy 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. I like Jackson Dart in particular. I think he's a good player. He could be a guy who ends up being good. I went to Syracuse, so I'm a little partial to their guy. I think he's probably going to go 5th round or so. McCord, but he's a different kind of quarterback. He's more of a guy who sits back in the pocket. He's kind of, I hate to say it, but he's similar to Aiden O'Connell in that sense. You almost got to have a mobile guy in this day and age, and I think that's where they're hurting a little bit.
Okay, so speaking of the draft, and I'm glad that I actually have a Raiders fan on here, because I gotta ask, because I actually was pretty critical on it a couple months ago. They've been on it for a while. You guys had how confident in you in the draft? Because I believe, what was it, in 2019 up until maybe 2022? I think you guys had 6 first-round draft picks in that span?
Yeah, it's all garbage too. They don't have anyone left, right? So, I think the key there is that's in the past. There's nobody kind of running things now that's even part of those teams. I mean, that's like you're talking about Mike Mayock back in the day with Gruden, and then the guy who came in with McDaniels, I forgot his name, but he kind of disappeared pretty quickly. So they haven't really given guys a shot. I think Tom Telesco was here for a year. I think he had a pretty good draft actually last year. He went with Brock Bowers as the best available guy when they were really, I think, wanted Michael Penix, and they thought he was going to slip and didn't end up getting him. So then they just went with the best guy. And I think just as far as the skill guys, they definitely need a running back too. They shouldn't have let Josh Jacobs go, in my opinion. But Josh wanted to win too. I mean, I don't think he was willing to wait through kind of a rebuild. And I don't blame him for that. Devontae Adams' situation is a little different because, he kind of played team player most of the time, and then he got pissed off and kind of gave up on the team, and he got his way. And I don't think it really worked out for him any better. So he lost another year of his career. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him moving forward.
I was confused as to why he even, I understand Aaron's your boy, but that like the house was kind of already on fire.
Right, exactly. Why go from one burning building to the next? It's not really, I mean, you're going to go down with your boy. I guess that's the only difference. But I mean, he played good in stretches. I think he's a great player. Potentially a Hall of Fame player. But the thing is, his window to win a Super Bowl is pretty small, and he needs to go to a team that's like where he's going to not be the guy. I think that's the biggest thing. I think going there with Garrett Wilson, you guys talked about him earlier, and he's a clear number one in my opinion. So Devontae's, he's not ready to be that number two guy. I don't know if he ever will be because his ego is so big. But at that stage of his career, I mean, he's 32 years old. I mean, most guys, you're a guy like Mike Evans and him are like a little like similar. They played a long time, but Mike's resume is way better in my opinion. It's just consistency, the winning. He's willing to do whatever it takes for the team, and I don't think Devontae's really showed that in his career like a Mike Evans has.
For sure. But what I wanted to ask you was, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brendan. I just had a brain fart. My whole mind.
Yeah, honestly. I'm like such a big fan of Brock Bowers. I think he's the best tight end in the league. Kind of like what you said, that they were more leaning towards Michael Penix, and now they kind of just settled on Brock Bowers. I mean, it's been an absolute home run. I mean, he's incredible. I love Brock Bowers. I don't know if you've heard, because they're trying to go for a quarterback potentially. What do you think they're going to kind of hit on in the draft if it's just going to be a quarterback, if they're just going to kind of build around Brock Bowers?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think him alone, like he was really like their number one wide receiver once Devontae left, and you can even argue when Devontae was here. I mean, he's like just an unbelievable talented player. I think it's cool with him and Michael Mayer, who you could have both those guys on the field at the same time. And I think Michael Mayer is almost more of a true tight end than Brock Bowers is. He's almost more of a wide receiver because the guy catches everything. He's got speed, and he's amazing. But I think just getting back to the Bears, you compare the rosters of the two teams. You've got a guy like Max Crosby, who the defense is going to be good. Christian Wilkins missed most of the season. Like, he got hurt early on and he was out. He was a great signing last offseason. They paid a lot of money to him, but like, I was really looking forward to seeing those two guys together on defense. But offensively, you've got Bowers. They definitely need a running back. I think they're going to make a play for somebody out on either free agency or maybe even draft somebody, but they need somebody to run the ball. The guys they had this year after they let Jacobs go were not good. So I think they were last in the league in rushing, and you can't have a quarterback like come in and then have all the pressure on him. Like their guys. I mean, Minshew was a mistake. I mean, it was right off the bat. But I think Bowers is like a perfect guy to build around. And when you look at their salary cap, they've got $92 million to spend. So that's the second most behind the Patriots. So you can throw that at Ben Johnson and say, look, you can bring your own guy in, like GM, whoever he wants. Yep. You guys can work together. And I think that's the one thing that the Raiders can do that the Bears cannot do. They're sticking with Ryan Poles right now. And
yeah,
I mean, that's a disadvantage. If you want to go out and get the guy, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. I do think Tom Brady's willing to do that. They're willing to throw as much money as possible. I mean, when McDaniels was hired here, to me, it kind of came out of left field because he was that candidate for the Colts where he left on them without, he had agreed to coach them and then kind of canceled it or whatever. And that kind of ruined his reputation. He failed in Denver. And then he was kind of an also-ran. Like Ben Johnson in this situation, I mean, he's by far the hottest name out there. And I think you just got to go all out to do whatever you can to get him. I mean, if a guy is like him, either the Bears or the Raiders, you have to be a little bit fearless as a head coach because you're going into a very competitive division, whether it's the North, the NFC North with the Packers and the Vikings. I think had a kind of a fluke year. I would be surprised if they were able to play like they did again. But the Packers are up and coming too. They kind of were a little disappointing. I thought they were going to be kind of what the Vikings were. And then in the AFC West, it's just totally stacked. So if you have a guy willing to come in and take a job and take over like basically a team in that situation, I'm all for it. I mean, I think they give him whatever he wants and let him mold the team however he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now I remember because I actually was watching his tape last night because I try to, I stay on top of the draft for sure. So I'm usually familiar, especially like players that just now came in. And I'm not gonna say I haven't watched a lot of Raiders games, but I do hear like little things. How do you feel about Tyree Wilson?
Oh yeah,
because I know
saw that in the chat there. Yeah, he's been a bit of a bust. I mean, they thought he was going to be a lot better. They thought he was going to be the perfect piece to go opposite of Crosby, and it just hasn't worked out. They did have Malcolm Kuntz, who they really loved last year, and got hurt early on. And he was kind of what Tyree Wilson was supposed to be. And he came on strong the previous season towards the end of the year. He looked awesome. So I don't know his situation as far as if he's under contract for next year, but it'll be interesting to see who they do decide to re-sign, because at this point, if you're going to hold on to Crosby, which I really think like he's the ultimate Raider, like if there's any player in the last like probably 20, 30 years that symbolizes what it is to be a Raider, he's it. You have to do whatever you can to keep him happy and be competitive, because I mean, like Josh Jacobs, I mean, you can't fault the guy for wanting to win. Like he goes to Alabama, he wants to, be competitive, have a winning record. So, I mean, I think he was able to at least do that in Green Bay this year. And then, but Crosby's another beast. I mean, the guy, he plays hurt. He did everything he could last year to play. And then he ended up getting surgery basically when the season was a wash. But I mean, he's just the heart and soul of the team. So you need to, I think when people think of the Raiders, they think of like defense, like the old school Raiders. And I think it starts there. But then if you have a guy like Ben Johnson come in and he can kind of build his own system. I know Najee Harris is a guy that Crosby really loves, like as far as a running back goes. But I think if you were to sign him to like a reasonable contract, he's not going to break the bank by any means. I don't think someone's going to be trying to sign Najee Harris, but Crosby's close with him. But you can maybe have him be like almost a Montgomery type, bruising type back. And if they had like another, like find that diamond in the rough, Sincere McCormick, even he was coming on strong. If you guys follow him at all, he's been a practice squad guy for them the last couple of years, and he got hurt like right at the end of the year and had to go on IR. But he's very promising. He's got flashes, man. He's I'm not going to say he's anywhere close to Jahmyr Gibbs, but if you were to have like a a Sonic and Knuckles combo for the Raiders, like I'm sure that's what Ben Johnson would want to do. You like everyone laughed at the Lions a few years ago when they drafted Gibbs, right? Because what you spent all this money on Montgomery, what are you doing? And now they're 2 games away from the Super Bowl, and it's like it worked out perfectly. It looked genius, and I think that is the future of the NFL. You cannot have a guy like a Derrick Henry is like a dinosaur. He's there's very few guys like him and Barkley and even Jacobs like that handle that much of a load. You got to have 2 guys do it. And I think Ben Johnson, if he were to come in here, he'd want to do something like that, get a quarterback, maybe like a Hendon Hooker or maybe like a Jackson Dart who can get in there and run a little bit, who's a threat with his legs as well as his arm. And you might have something. Their offensive line was not terrible. They just didn't do a great job running the ball last year because of the talent they had there.
Yeah, I do believe that the league has somehow talked itself out of getting good running backs, or they shouldn't be picked here. And the teams that clearly put that value in them, Philadelphia, took advantage of New York's mistake in Saquon Barkley late in games. As you see, he's hitting home runs. It's like when those games are getting tight and late, that you need to lean on your running backs. So I do feel like if you guys can get Najee Harris for a good price with Ben Johnson as a head coach, that's tremendous upside, because we know we've seen what Najee Harris can be, but I would attribute more things to maybe we haven't seen that level from him consistently or at this level based off of Pittsburgh's offensive situation.
Exactly. And that has a lot to do with it. So if you have the right coach in there, I think makes a world of difference. And that's where the Raiders have struck out in the past. Antonio Pierce was like a great, rah-rah guy, motivating the guys. I mean, they play hard for him. Let's not, you got to be honest about it. Like he did a great job. He has a little Dan Campbell in him. He fired up the guys, but when it came down to like clock management and things that a head coach is supposed to do, he didn't have the experience, and he failed in that aspect. So otherwise they would have had a couple more wins, to be honest with you. They were close in some games, and they just let it get away from them. So, I mean, they need that guy to take them to the next level. And, I think they could, if they had the right pieces in there, they could potentially have a winning record and have a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, for sure. Like you guys definitely have some talent, like Jack Jones. Y'all got him from us.
Yeah,
I was kind of pissed that Bill let him go, but then again, the off-field stuff, I can't say that's nothing new with Bill, so it didn't surprise me. I mean, I didn't want it to happen, but Bill's a straight shooter. You feel me? And anybody watch this podcast that know me, I love Bill Belichick to death. That's my guy. But I don't think he should have let him go in that sense. So, do you feel like you guys have any guys like on the way out? Like, I know they bring up Max Crosby because obviously that's one of your most valuable pieces right now. Do you feel like he is going to like end up on that trading block, getting traded somewhere, or? I
don't think so. I think he's too important. I think if he would have gone someplace, they would have done it last year. I mean, I know he's battling injuries and stuff like that, but I mean, he's so entrenched here. But again, he wants to win. I mean, if they bring a new head coach in and they end up with the same kind of record they did this year, then or they're heading that way, maybe they do something like that. I mean, nothing would shock me anymore, but I mean, he's just so important to the team. And when he was on the field, their defense is just like, I just keep going back to that game that they played the Chiefs on Christmas a couple of years ago. And I haven't seen Patrick Mahomes scared of too many players and where he was afraid to throw the ball. And just watching that game and seeing Max like bear down on him and like that defense, I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, they played so well. Jack Jones had a pick 6 in that game. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him just because he was one of Antonio Pierce's guys. Antonio Pierce brought him in because he had him, I think, going back to high school. So he knew him from a long time ago. And I don't know if he'll be one of those guys that they keep around. He's a very talented player. I know Nate Hobbs, I think, is a free agent. He's coming up, and he's a pretty good like a nickel corner. He's not like one of their regular starters, but I mean he'll play against the slot guys and whatnot. And he's got talent, you know what I mean? So it's like they could go through like a complete overhaul. $92 million is a lot of money to spend, and I don't think they need a lot on offense, really. I mean, the receivers like Jacoby Myers, phenomenal player. Like to me, like one of the most like underappreciated players in the league. He had 1,000 yards receiving. And he was just a complete team player. Like that's what surprised me. I mean, you talk about Belichick. Like I don't know why they chose to let him go. It makes no sense.
You don't know why?
I don't know.
Enlighten me. He's in the jersey now. That game versus the Raiders, like I said, this is just my opinion.
Oh, the one that was here where okay. Was that the one?
I feel like, and I kid you not, like I told him, I'll be going tonight if I'm lying. I said it the moment he did it. I said that man gonna be a Raider next year. Obviously, I was looking at the Josh McDaniels being there, but it didn't make any sense to me. And then to see him go sign with that team afterwards, I ain't gonna lie, it was a slap in the face. It was like, You know what I mean? For me to say it when it happened, I didn't want to be right. You feel me? Like I ain't trying to spark up nothing or that like that, but it just didn't look good to me. I'm just being honest. Like it was like, like because in somewhat of a sense, the Patriots, had they won that game, not to say that they already had it won because it still would have to go to OT. That could have been another year potentially they were in the playoffs because I think they missed the playoffs by like a game or two.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that with the Jacoby Myers thing. I feel like
so you're saying you think it was that game that was here, that one where Chandler Jones picked up the. I was at that game.
Yeah, and then he went and signed in the offseason. I think that probably was on Bill's mind a little bit.
But throwing the same kind of money at Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean,
that was just horrible.
And then that completely backfired. I mean, that to me was more surprising because he's been nothing. I'm telling you, he's been nothing but a team player since he's been here. He's been awesome. He was a great number 2 to Devontae, and then last year, man, he just picked it up and he was awesome. I mean, he caught everything that went his way, and like he was great with Brock Bowers. Like he was a great secondary option. So
I knew he would be
another year. I think
I knew he would be a good player. After his rookie year, when I was looking at it, like, who the hell is 16? Because he's trash. I'm not gonna lie, I ain't like him at first. I'm like, his rookie year, I'm like, why is Tom targeting that guy? But then the next year he came in, he went up. Yeah, he elevated his game, and then it was like, okay, you feel me? I have no choice but to give him his respect. You know what I mean? He's a very good player considering he came out a quarterback. He was a quarterback in college, so he transferred into that wide receiver role. That gave me a better understanding of, like I said, when I was looking at him as rookie, I'm like, yo, who's this guy? Like, he sucks. Who's that 16 guy? And then the next year he made that.
Like the next Edelman, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
exactly.
Yeah, and then he just continued to make strides and leaps. And then I'm like, that's a football player right there. Like, it doesn't.
Oh, I think he's matured a ton in the last couple of years, even just going through all the shit that's gone on with the Raiders. I mean, there's so much stuff behind the scenes, I'm sure, and like, just him going out there like every week and playing hard. Like, I mean, he's still here another year, and I think like that him and Bowers, and you got, like I said, Michael Mayer. You've got like good, solid receivers. And it's just a matter of like they need a running game, and they need a guy to get them the ball, and like. It's not going to be Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I think he shows flashes and stuff, but he just sits in the pocket too much and takes a beating, and like he gets hurt like every second or third game, it seems like.
Right. Yeah. With the Raiders, because with the Patriots right before the last game of the year, we were most likely going to have the number 1 overall pick, and I was seeing like trade scenarios of us and the Raiders. Right. You guys to kind of be the number 1 team. And I was hoping to get it so that we can get, a couple first-round picks. And I also really wanted to have Jacoby Myers back. I miss him so much. I thought he was awesome. And clearly we made the wrong choice because Juju was horrible. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I always wondered how Bill was going to make that work with all those receivers that couldn't separate. Juju, Juju, Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys were those possession type of receivers where.
Well, I thought Parker was going to be awesome, man. I like coming out of college, out of Louisville and stuff. I thought he was going to be the man, and he kind of was a bust in Miami, and then I thought that was a good pickup by the Patriots. But it's just like they just got to get May, like just that number 1 guy. It's like it would have been great to see him get Travis Hunter. That would have been a great.
And with Juju. Do you remember the report of it was I think it was before the season started, right? Because he had the issue with his knee. There was like the report that like his knee could explode at any moment. The second that came out, I knew this was gonna be a disaster. That is like imagine a report of like talking about you saying that your knee's gonna explode. That's crazy. Like, oh my god, it was just Juju was.
It's only gonna go down from there, right?
Yeah, I feel like
exactly. Like you can't recover from that. Like that's crazy.
Right. Wide receivers like him and Parker and all the reason why you've seen Juju's best years was with Ben Roethlisberger. Those wide receivers that can't separate, they need a gunslinger like a Jameis Winston, guys that because the teams that they weren't going to flourish in the Patriots system because the number 1 thing was taking care of the ball. We wasn't in
Right.
no biscuit, no biscuit type of system. So those guys, even when you look back at the Des Bryants, you wonder what happened to decline once Dak Prescott became the quarterback. He wasn't Tony Romo. Tony Romo's slinging it. Dak Prescott's more careful with the ball, so he's not going to force it in there when he sees like guys draped all over him. So that's what I feel like. That's where it went wrong with like Juju, and people are like, yeah, he's a number one receiver, and yeah, well, he had AB there, you know. So it's like, Juju is just.
When
you talk about quarterbacks, about quarterbacks like that, that's where I think Ben Johnson, to me, even though the Raiders are going to go out all out to get him, like I think it makes the most sense for him to coach Caleb Williams, because Caleb needs to be taught that he needs to take risks and become more of like just not worrying about every pass he throws. He would rather take a sack every time overthrow a pick, and he ends up getting the shit beat out of him last year. Like, and he only threw like 6 picks or whatever, and he had to set the record for most completions without a pick for a rookie and all that. But I mean, he's a player with the talent. Like, he has a lot of Mahomes in him, but he needs an offensive line, and he needs that more of a gunslinger. Like, I'm gonna take the risk. That Mahomes is just fearless out there. And I think if Caleb can learn to be more fearless, like what Ben Johnson has helped Goff develop into, like if he had his hands on Caleb Williams, man, he could turn him into like a top 5 quarterback in the league. So that job is appealing the most, like as far as shaping, because let's be honest, like no quarterback in the draft is as good as Caleb Williams, and no free agent out there is as good as Caleb Williams. I don't think so.
My bad.
I would rather take him over anyone in this draft or any free agent. Like, I would take him.
On last year's draft, I was about to say I'll take my guy over him all day. Yeah, I'll take Drake.
No. I just mean in this draft. Last year's draft is going to go down as like one of the best quarterback drafts ever. I mean, just all those guys.
He has to stop ad-libbing so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Cam Ward doesn't fall into that same thing. Like, this is not college. You don't have 5 seconds to sit back there and pick through everything. And I feel like when watching Caleb, he leaves the pocket entirely too early sometimes. And I seen they had a stat where he takes the most sack when his offensive line has a pass block win rate, when they actually win the pass blocking rep. So, you moving outside the pocket, moving in there towards those defenders, I do feel like he would benefit from a Ben Johnson coming in.
Just anybody better than they had last year. I mean, they had some of the worst coaching. I mean, I know Thomas Brown was up for the job, and he kind of got thrown into being like a passing coordinator to offensive coordinator to head coach, like boom. And like, that's a lot to accelerate. I'm not saying he's a terrible coach or anything, but I mean, that's a lot of responsibility to all of a sudden have for a guy or for a team, and for a prized rookie like that, all that pressure. He needs a guy like Ben Johnson more than any of these other, situations. I think that would be, if I was in the shoes of Ben Johnson, like I think I would want to try to help develop him. Or, the Raiders situation, I mean, if maybe he's got a guy in mind that he loves in the draft, and he knows he can get him in the 2nd or 3rd round, and they could go best available with their 6th pick. And I mean, that's the thing. If you're not going to get one of those top 2 guys, you're going to get, I still think this is kind of a sneaky draft as far as like the depth of the quarterbacks, where you might get that diamond in the rough. And Brady knows all about that. He knows about finding that, like, he was one of those guys. So that they're out there, and like the guys who are like number 1, like, I mean, Cam Ward, I mean, I think he's very talented and stuff, but I mean, I don't know. He could end up being just the same as those other 2 or 3 guys that are towards the top. You have no idea. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It's all about where you go in the situation you're in. And like, if the Raiders, they have the most amount of money to rebuild quickly and throw a lot of talent together. And I know the Bears are like top 10, I think, in salary cap too. They need to upgrade that high school offensive line first and foremost. And I think if they can do that, I would spend all my money on the offensive line. I think their skill positions are fine. They could probably bring back Keenan Allen for another year. And like, even if they don't, I mean, they got the talent. They still have DJ Moore. I think Adunze is going to be really good, but and they got a good tight end, and running game is decent too. So they have like the pieces that the Raiders don't necessarily have right now outside of Bowers, which is huge. I mean, Bowers is just so good. He's a building block in himself.
One thing with Chicago, they what was it, 2023? They took a right tackle, right? In the first, Darnell Wright, from Tennessee.
Yeah, from Tennessee, yeah.
So,
he was supposed to, and they thought maybe he'd be their left tackle too, and he just, I think in college he was a left tackle, and then they moved him over, and I don't know, they need somebody like with just a fresh, like brand new slate to go in there and focus on the offensive side of the ball, because I mean that's where it's just been so disappointing as a Bears fan ever since like 1985, like even the Cutler years. I mean, just disappointing. Like, he's still like their top passer they've ever had. They've never had a 4,000 yard passer, which is mind boggling in today's day and age. But they got to focus on that side of the ball.
I'm sorry. I thought we were still talking about the Raiders. Yeah, the Bears.
I'm all over the place.
No. You good, brother. You good, brother.
With the Bears needing a head coach, there was a report that came out today that they obviously interviewed Mike McCarthy, and it sounds like it went like really well. I hate that. I would never want Mike McCarthy.
Absolutely not. No, I think I might give up rooting for the Bears permanently if they hire Mike McCarthy. I'd rather have Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll at least has like I don't know, like he squeezed a couple of years on. The only thing I don't like about him is he's old. He's so old. I mean, he's older than Belichick. And like, how long is you want to have a guy who can come in and give you like the prime years of his life. And the thing about Pete is, his best years are behind him, obviously, because he's another like guy that they love in Vegas. Like they think if they don't get Ben Johnson, he's like kind of the fallback plan. And it's just like that's a big like fall for a consolation prize.
I'm gonna give you one reason why I think the Pete Carroll thing possibly could work. Because if you look at the undersized quarterback, Caleb, he's undersized in the pocket. Mm-hmm. Look at Russell Wilson early in his career.
No, I can see that.
They utilized it where they kind of moved the pocket for him to either get back a little further behind the line where he could see it a little bit better. And I feel like that's a main problem from Caleb. Trying to throw from the pocket and your offensive lineman is 6'4" all the way to 6'7". You got these guys' hands up in your face.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility that could work, but it all depends on, I guess, who he would bring the offensive coordinator in.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Both of y'all. What's problem with Mike McCarthy? Because I'm not saying that, but his resume, he does have a pretty replicable resume. So what's the problem with Mike?
What his best years, again, like I just think like you look at what he did in Green Bay, and like, was that more Aaron Rodgers or was that him? And then he went to Dallas, and he had good records and stuff like that. But I mean, the playoff stuff just speaks for itself. I mean, you got to have
games.
Yeah.
I mean, where coaching really matters now.
Because that playoff game last year, I would have fired him right after that game. After they lost the Packers that badly at home.
Oh yeah.
And then this year they played so poorly at home. So poorly. Like they give up like 40 points a game, like I don't know how many games in a row at home. Like it's just like so many fireable offenses for that guy. I don't think
never won. Yeah, he never won the division more than one year in a row. He never won it multiple years in a row. Like whenever it was like between them and the Eagles, he'd always lose. Like he doesn't like when it comes to like those big.
He doesn't win the big games. He doesn't win the big games. And even like with Rodgers, I mean, they won the Super Bowl one year. They choked other times. They lost to Eli one year. At home, they got blown out at home. Like. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers he's got a Hall of Fame career, no doubt about it. But I just want him to retire too. He's got nothing. I don't know what the only thing he can do to help himself is win another Super Bowl, and that ain't happening. He's not Tom Brady. It's not going to happen. It's not happening. Not going to happen.
I feel like now two things about Mike McCarthy. One of the past, I know that I seen a report that Aaron Rodgers' last year or two there, he was like Mike McCarthy would call in the play, Aaron would change it in the huddle. So if we wonder why it was looking bad, that one's a little bit on Aaron. I feel like where he went wrong at this year was when he hired Mike Zimmer. Because I'm the type of person, I study football through the X's and O's. I'm not gonna say I'm this big scout because I definitely still got some years to go up under me to get to that level. But I understand the game, And Mike Zimmer is somebody that I actually like studied his defense and broke it down. I didn't think that it was going to work in Dallas because just off the simple fact that I watched the guys he brought in, same guys he had over there in Minnesota, and they're older now. The Linval Josephs, the Michael Kendricks, Eric Kendricks, things like that. Because just to give you a little bit of background on his type of defense, first they like to put a lot of pressure on those A gaps. That's the obvious thing. Two, his linebackers, like in football, you got a field side and you got the boundary side. Boundaries closest to whatever hash mark is closer to the sideline. Mike Zimmer's defense is set up like that from linebackers to corners. So one corner, no matter where it is, okay, if it goes to this hash mark and you're always going to be that corner that's closest to the sideline. And so he has a boundary linebacker and a field linebacker. I just didn't feel like the personnel that he had and what he was trying to bring in, it wasn't gonna. Everybody wasn't gonna flourish in that system because it looked like it's more set up to be a heavy blitzing team and to rush the passer rather than stop the run. It did benefit certain players like DeMarcus Overshown. I feel like if he continues with what I saw last year, it'll be in very short order. He'll be a top 5 linebacker in the league easily. But I feel like that's where they took their biggest regression at was when Dan Quinn left and they didn't properly put back into that defensive side of the ball because that's where your best player's at. Yeah, Dak's a good player. CeeDee Lamb's a damn good player. But Micah, I feel like you would have wanted to maximize that. Even Trayvon Diggs can't stay healthy for you know what I mean. Right. His best years might be over it because he's like a Marcus Peters, gambles. If he has good safeties behind him, that allows him to do some of the stuff he's doing, play around where he can jump the quarterback and things like that. So I mean personally, I don't feel like he's like a bad.
No, that's a good point.
But y'all are right. Like about those big games, some coaches just can't win them. For whatever reason, you just can't win them.
Well, and that's the thing with the head coach. The head coach is basically like the outside of the general manager and stuff. I mean, he's the guy who runs the team, so he's held accountable for making the right picks on the coaches and the coaching staff and everything like that. And I think between that and making like the big decisions in the game, like the in-game decisions and like late game situations, all that kind of thing, and yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. Now, I'll throw this out at you. I know Micah Parsons loved playing for Mike McCarthy, and he's not under contract. I mean, I think he's they could probably franchise him and all that. But like, what if Mike McCarthy goes to Chicago and the Bears tried to get Micah Parsons somehow? Like that.
Oh, Jerry Jones can let that happen.
How many guys need $100 million though?
Talk to him. Yeah. He didn't even want to let Mike McCarthy go talk to him. I mean, we're talking about Jerry Jones here. Like,
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. It's
definitely a hot take. I hope you're picking some.
That's the only way I would welcome Mike McCarthy is if he brought Micah Parsons with him. And like he can go pound sand somewhere else in the desert.
Yeah. Sure. As a Bears/Raiders fan, do you have any questions for us? Because the Raiders and Patriots have been kind of with each other this whole off season. I don't know if you had any questions for us kind of regarding that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I was kind of hoping they were going to get the number 1 pick too, because I thought they might have been able to strike a deal or something. Yeah. I mean, before the talk of Dion to Dallas, there was the whole talk of Shador is going to come here and maybe Dion would coach, and they'd get Shiloh here too. And I mean, they can make it all. They were the most likely team to make that whole Dion's dream situation come true. And now it's like, I don't know. I think it's just so overplayed and stuff like that. Like, I think Dion's best shot is to just go to Dallas if he wants to. I mean, and take a shot at the NFL.
Right? It's time to get serious. You feel me?
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, go. That there's at least he has a good. Not too many guys have good relationships with Jerry Jones. So if you do, you might as well take that guy's money, man. I would take that in a heartbeat. And the thing is, like Ben Johnson, like he's not going to go there. He's going to either go to the Bears, the Raiders, or the Jaguars. I think it's going to be one of those 3 teams. The Jaguars would be like a wuss move, in my opinion,
Yeah,
if you want to go to a challenge and you want to win, like you gotta go to a big market, like someplace where it would be you'd get a lot of respect. And I think Chicago and Las Vegas, like those two markets with the competition there, like that's where you're going to make your name. And if you want to be a Hall of Fame coach or win, like you got to start someplace like big and not just toil away in Jacksonville. And, you know, not that they have good talent there. I mean, some guys are Trevor Lawrence fans, some aren't. I still think he's a decent quarterback, but like, if you have a chance to mold your own guy, I would do that.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. Like that's what I was gonna ask you. So who do you like if it was up to you and you had your magic wand and you could just make it happen, but this is pertaining to quarterbacks that's available or that may be available to you. Who would you want to be the quarterback of the Raiders next year? Oh
man. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I would like ideally I would go the Ben Johnson route and I would try to trade for Hendon Hooker because he's been in the system. I liked him like coming out of college. I thought that I remember watching the draft a couple years ago or whatever, and then seeing that second round like come around and that they needed a quarterback and they did not take him. They ended up taking Aiden O'Connell, I think, in the 4th round. And then last year they took nobody. They took no quarterback. So I think like, you know, he's got talent and I would like to see him get a shot. And then you draft somebody and then you go that route and hopefully one of those two guys pans out and can play. You've got good skills guys. You sign a running back in the offseason like a Najee Harris and then maybe draft somebody. Great running back class too. I think it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of running backs in this class.
Genty might be the best one. But, you know, you've got a lot of guys out there. The Tennessee's running back is coming out. He's coming out. The Syracuse running back, very good running back. North Carolina. Yeah, there's tons. Arizona State running back. He had a great run. Yeah, you can get him maybe the 2nd, 3rd round. And, like, I mean, I don't know. It's just
my franchise mode.
That's what I would do.
But, damn, what was I about to ask you?
But I would not get Darnold. I would not like try to throw a lot of money at him or do anything like that. I think they need to like grow a quarterback here. Like that's the thing. Ever since Derek Carr was here, like he just turned out to be a huge bust. I'm glad they don't have him around here anymore. But you know, once he got Devontae and he just kind of pissed that season away under McDaniels. I don't think McDaniels liked him like going in. So I'm not sure he really got like a complete fair shake in the whole situation, but I mean, you saw what he's been with the Saints and like, I mean, he might be on his way out too. I wouldn't be surprised if he was another guy who got cut like a Kirk Cousins. Like there's going to be some good veterans out there that I wouldn't touch if I was the Raiders. I would definitely try to develop a younger guy because they had Minshew last year. They went that route. Hopefully they can unload him. I think they signed him like a 2-year, $25 million deal and they can trade him back to Indy or something like that and move on.
I feel like with the Raiders, do you think there's any possibility they bypass quarterback this year? And let's say, you know, because Arch is looking like he's about to start this upcoming season over Quinn.
Oh, try to tank for him or what?
I wouldn't exactly say tank because you know what I mean, that's but I feel like they may be somebody's going to be in prime position to get him because, like you said, it's only 2 quarterbacks that has a 1st round grade. And sadly, the Patriots let all the teams that need quarterbacks get ahead of them. So we really have no like bargaining chip. So either the Browns or the Giants, somebody's gonna miss out unless somebody pulls what Indy did with Anthony Richardson. Because you know nowadays it's a combine. Yeah. A guy might come in and like, oh yeah, he's pretty good, and he's going to show away, combine and. Because Jalen Milroe, like if we're going to talk about like just athleticism, talent, and traits, he's going to blow the rest of those guys out of the water. I'm just being honest.
But I just wouldn't touch him, man. I wouldn't touch him. Like I saw some people projecting him as like high as 6 to the Raiders. I'm like, dude, I would not. Great runner. I think he's a better runner than Jalen Hurts probably, but he cannot. It took Jalen Hurts a little while, first couple years in the NFL to like develop as a passer, and like I don't know if he's ever going to develop. He could have used another year of college to kind of get better. And we get drafted.
Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts still hasn't I don't know if well, yeah, obviously I'm gonna make sure that I follow you afterwards. But I literally just posted a video about that earlier, talking about Jalen Hurts. But some people, even in the year where they were talking about, oh wait, the MVP, I'm like, if you script those rushing numbers off of him, I said he has Mac Jones rookie year passing stats. So I don't exactly see how that's a MVP caliber player. Like, yeah,
no, it's the rushing. It's a huge advantage for sure. I mean, Jalen Milroe could probably be a great running back in the NFL. To be honest with you, like not even play quarterback, but I mean, he's going to go in as a quarterback. And,
you know, they said the same thing about Lamar. That's why I try to not take these guys' quarterback things away.
Well, Lamar won the Heisman though too. He won the Heisman. He was amazing, and his passing stats were pretty mind blowing in college. Like he was awesome. I'm surprised. I'm still pissed, to be honest with you, that's the guy I wanted a couple years ago when he was going through all the quarterback drama in Baltimore. I was like, you pay that guy, pay him whatever he wants. Yeah. I would have given him a Deshaun Watson contract to come to Vegas because he would have been here. He would have had Devontae. He would have had Waller was still here. Like that was the guy that they should have replaced Carr with.
I don't get that because there were plenty of teams that knew they needed a quarterback. And
Atlanta was another one. Oh, he's not that good. Whatever.
Yeah, the Ravens left it out there for somebody else to like. If I was a GM, I promise you, I would have threw so much money at him. Dude,
I'm shocked. I don't know why like nothing came out about anybody offering him a deal. Like something's it's crazy to me.
Backroom conversations. I'm pretty sure that was hey, listen, my guy's acting up. You know what I mean? We got to get this market back together because I'm pretty sure.
Right, Deshaun screwed it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those other 31 owners fucking cursed out the Cleveland Browns owner the moment.
That's true. That's true. Sorry, but he is the guy. He is the guy that of any guy that's been up for a contract in the last couple of years, he's the one guy who deserves something like that, like to be appreciated. Like, you win the MVP, like his year unbelievable. Like if Josh Allen didn't have the year he did, like Lamar would easily be like a unanimous MVP. But he's just that, like they were so both. I still think Lamar's stats, like you can't argue with them. I wouldn't be shocked if you wanted.
No, his stats are so much better. Yeah, it's so much better this year. And with Lamar, with the whole Deshaun thing, because I think Lamar was asking for Deshaun money. So I'm assuming, the coaches or the owners were probably all getting together, like, look, we can't let this be.
We can't allow it to happen, right? I know, right? It's a shame. Like Deshaun, and he'll never be back in the NFL, or he'll never live out like the potential of that contract ever. And it's a shame because he just changed the whole game for.
I just need something. Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco was actually talking about it. That a report actually came out that Deshaun was like being basically uncoachable. That like you guys got to go look at it yourself because I don't want to quote too much on it and be wrong like exactly what I'm saying, but I did watch it and they were talking about things like basically like he scoffed at the scheme that Kevin Stefanski told him that we'll benefit better being in the wide zone spread like system, and that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to move Deshaun more under center to get more things out of him like that. Deshaun wanted to be in the shotgun, and obviously you got all those
I can see that
the sexual harassment cases and 2 torn Achilles, and it's looking like you're not going to play this year. So the last full season we've seen Deshaun Watson was maybe 2020. So what are you talking about coming in 2026 and he's supposed to do what exactly?
I mean, they might end up taking a quarterback that's going to replace him this year, and he might never be like a starting quarterback the way we knew him again. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. He hasn't been that guy the last few years, and I mean, I was very high on him too. I wanted the Bears to draft him back when they took Trubisky, and I kind of jumped off the bandwagon at that point because I was like, God, this team, man. It's just a comedy of errors. Everything. Not only did they draft Trubisky, but they traded up to get him with the 49ers of all teams. And it's like, come on. So, but yeah, I thought Deshaun was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in that draft with Mahomes, and he was on track to do that until he messed everything up. So, and I don't think he'll ever be the same. It's like it's crazy how it turns out. But I mean, they got to turn a page. I mean, Stefanski's a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. Like, how do you not listen to the guy? Like, you know,
Right.
He's another guy. I was kind of hoping he would have gotten fired because I would have like gladly taken him in Chicago or something like that. Like, he would have been a perfect guy to mentor like Caleb Williams as well, or anybody. He's a great coach. Like, you know,
yeah, totally.
Him and Kevin O'Connell, like both those guys. I saw something too about the Bears maybe trying to work a trade to get Kevin O'Connell from the Vikings. I'm like, you know, you can't be doing shit like that. That stuff doesn't work out. Like, it just. You know, I know it happened recently with in Denver and stuff, and like the Raiders did it back in the day with Gruden going to Tampa Bay and stuff. But like, you know,
I feel like Kevin would be too expensive just after this year. I feel like
you would think so. Absolutely. I mean, it's not worth if you're like trying to come up and become like just even a 500 team or like have a winning record. You can't afford to let draft capital go and like just piss that away to get a guy when you can get a young guy like Ben Johnson, who to me is like the next guy in line. He's going to be like the next Stefanski, the next O'Connell, maybe better than both of them. So you have to, whether it's the Bears or the Raiders, like, honestly, I'm going to be so disappointed if one of those two teams doesn't get it, because like they both have their pluses and minuses, and like he has a lot to think about, and he's got to try to win a football game and win a Super Bowl still in the next few weeks. So it's a lot. I can't even imagine being him, man. He's the hottest commodity I've seen in the NFL in a long time.
Yeah. I feel like, like you said, it should be either one of those two organizations, but we do have to look at Jacksonville.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They did slip last year, but that could be a very attractive.
Yeah, they were a playoff team 2 years ago. I mean, they were good, and they had a lot of injuries, and their defense sucked. It was one of the worst defenses, but they have talent. I mean, they have some good draft picks that they put on the defensive side of the ball, and like, I mean, if they can get like I think Brian Thomas Jr. is an elite number one receiver, and like their running back situation is a little odd right now. With Etienne, seemed like he slipped a ton last year, and but they have a lot of talent. I mean, they're the most like ready team to like take to the next level of any of the teams I think left out there, except for Dallas. Like Dallas and Jacksonville are pretty comparable, where you could go to either one of those teams and probably take them to the playoffs like the next year. Especially with the division that the Jaguars are in, it's a lot easier to win. That to me is the easy way out. If I was Ben Johnson, like, sure, you could go there and maybe they'll throw a ton of money at him too. But I don't think Mark Davis is going to get outbid for him. I think it's going to be more than money to get him somewhere else. Yeah,
because realistically, one thing about Jacksonville, if New England bypassed Travis Hunter, then he's theirs. Or like if any of those teams in the top three decide that, you know, they want to go with a quarterback or something else in that value, like you said, it is a team that has talent on it, though they overpay some of those players, like that cornerback that never made a Pro Bowl, but it's one of the highest paid corners in the league, and also Trevor Lawrence. But, you know, they could have a Travis Hunter right there and on their hands too. So, you know, I've been keeping an eye on just what's been going on around the league, because obviously us Patriots, we got Mike Vrabel, but our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator search has been kind of quiet the last couple of days.
Yeah, we just Thomas Brown. Speaking of the Bears, we just interviewed your guys' interim for the OC job.
What, for the Patriots? Yeah, come on now. They need to.
Yeah, he's a step below. I mean, the thing is, the way they finished the year, man, like outside of beating the Packers, I mean, that was a total fluke. But, you know, I mean, there was like really no progress. Like he didn't, even after they fired, what's his name? Like after that Lions debacle. Eberflus. Like Thomas Brown did not show any better clock management down the stretch. Like they lost that game against the Seahawks, was pathetic. There's no way they should have lost that game. That 6-3 game. That was probably the ugliest game I've ever watched in my life. And I mean that was the thing. He had a great opportunity to go out there and win a couple games, and he didn't do it. I mean, they got blown out by the 49ers. Like didn't show up, and like I don't know. I don't think he's an offensive coordinator like level type guy yet.
And you know where I feel like a lot of organizations have been failing at bringing in. Oh, there's my daughter. Bringing in a lot of guys that may have been like just great. Like the Patriots this past year, we dealt with Alex Van Pelt, where it's like AVP, just looking at his resume of coaching quarterbacks, it's impeccable. But then looking at him as an offensive coordinator, Brendan can attest to this. He didn't utilize every inch of that offense, where we could say, oh, well, receiver was a problem. This receiver, well, the receivers, though I'm not going to say that we got like high end talent, you did see a jump from Drake May and Mac Jones. You saw what those similar or same receivers could look like, considering the Patriots' two best receivers were 7th round picks.
Yeah.
They were 7th round picks right now, but Kayshon Boutte, if he can return to anything that 80% of what he was in college, then you got a clear number 2 right there. Do you guys feel like that's a common theme in the NFL, where it's like, oh, we need to bring in this guy for this player, and you're bringing in and he maximizes that player, but he doesn't maximize the overall unit.
Right, and that's a big thing, because if you look at like Kevin O'Connell's a perfect example. Is like, look what he did with Sam Darnold. Look, I mean, he's like a quarterback whisperer. Same thing with, Shanahan's been the same way too. I mean, you think about all the guys that he's kind of gotten the most out of and everything, but like when it comes to clock management, I mean, he's not known as being the most. He's choked a few times. He choked against the Patriots when he was offensive coordinator of the Falcons, and then with the 49ers last year in the Super Bowl. I mean, there's no way they should have lost that game to the Chiefs last year. I mean, that is just ridiculous, just bad. I mean, but he's one of the most respected coaches. So he's another one of those guys that, like, offensive coordinator, it's a huge lot of responsibility as a head coach, but then you still can't get caught up like almost to a fault, like over analyzing every situation to the point that, you end up blowing some games. I mean, it's like Kevin O'Connell, when it came down to it, like he couldn't beat the Rams this year. He lost to them twice. He lost to 2 teams, right? He lost the Lions and the Rams twice each. That's right. It.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are big games. He was outcoached in all of them.
Yeah, I mean, then he coached under McConnell. Yeah, he came from the Rams.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I felt like Sean McVay had to go through the same thing with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be something to watch too. I'm gonna say this here now because if it does happen, I want some fire. But the Kyle Shanahan thing, he has led that team like to some heights, but I think you can even go back and look at it prior to Christian McCaffrey coming there. I don't know. I think he was under 500 as a head coach. So this Brock Purdy thing, he actually kind of saved Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, because the Trey Lance, that didn't work out.
Yeah,
so
luckily
that came up.
And they traded up to get him too, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean,
Philly's so freaking good. It's like, I'm telling you, like when they traded up to do that, all type of, you get this pick and this person took this pick and traded it to this team, and it got, because I think they had the Dolphins pick. I think they used their pick plus the Dolphins pick to get up in the draft. I got to go back and look at it. But
they like Mac Jones a lot from that draft too, and I think that was their second option. If they weren't going to get Trey Lance's, they probably would have tried to get in the ahead of the Patriots and drafted him. And who the heck knows what would have happened with him, like if he was under Shanahan and the system with those receivers and everything else. It's just like one of those things, you just never know. Outside of Brady, who's played with like a million different receivers, it didn't matter. He didn't win it. The only time he didn't win a Super Bowl, it seemed like, was when he had Randy Moss, who was the best receiver he ever played with. So it's like it's just crazy how that all pans out. But I mean, it's crazy.
Looking back on the 2021 class, don't look good at all, because Trevor Lawrence, like I said, we're still holding on to hope for him, because considering it's a prototypical size, but all those other guys, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, they all for their teams within like 2 to 3 years.
It's interesting you brought up Justin Fields, because he's another guy I could see in Vegas too, like maybe as a bridge quarterback, or maybe give him a shot, because I don't think the Steelers are going to hold on to. They might just go a completely different route with quarterback next year altogether. But I mean, he's a guy, I think, like, he's still got potential. He's still very young, and you could still not have to pay him a ton of money. I think the Bears were very close to holding on to him last year, but they just could not justify when it came down to it. Like, why would you pay Justin Fields like that huge extension?
Hi.
How would you pay him all that money and then
not
reset with a guy who could be better than Caleb Williams and pay him like a fraction of the amount? So, but Fields is another guy. I think he was out there and he was kind of jobbed by Pittsburgh because I still think he could have led them to a pretty respectable year too. I mean, I think he would have been just as good as Russ when it comes down to the final record and everything like that. Sure, Russ gave him a boost, the Steelers, but like Fields could have done the same thing, I think.
Yeah, because nobody thought he could run like that in college. He was more known as a passer than he got to the league. Like, it's his legs. So, yeah, man, like that, and that's what I honestly feel like coaching. A lot of things do fall like to the coaching, and sometimes a player, like that's why location is pivotal. That's why even with like Shador, I like Shador, but I hope he goes somewhere good where he can fit in, and they're not looking for Shador to uplift that organization because the Shador is, he does have and I don't mind the flamboyantness. You know what I mean? If you can back it up,
he's a confident kid for sure.
Yeah, do your thing, but when understanding that you're trying to be a leader of men too, that's probably something you should leave behind because you're coming into a situation where now these are veteran players and everything, and now you're the rookie. They don't care nothing about your Rich Chamili and the different type of timing and all of that. Like, dudes is out here trying to collect their paychecks, playoff game checks and things like that. You already know things written in that contract that, hey, dude, I'm trying to make this happen because I need that extra $7.5 million at the end.
Right.
So you feel what I'm saying? Like, and that's why like a lot of players that I end up liking coming out, I just want to see him go to a good spot, man. Like, regardless of where you go into the draft, you should want to go somewhere where they're going to treat you right. Because obviously, if you outplay that first contract, what's coming on the second contract. So who really cares where you win at in the draft?
Right.
You feel me? Like, Brock Purdy's about to see a bigger payday than Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett was picked in the first round. Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft.
Right.
Because he went to the right place. Now, would we have seen that from him anywhere
else?
Makes
a huge difference.
Yeah, would we have seen Tom the way at pick 99? Would we have seen Tom be the Tom that he was had he not been in New England? And you know what I mean? We'll never know.
Yeah.
But history says more often than not, it probably never would have happened. So, you know what I mean? That's why I said like Shador, Cam Ward, those dudes, like they just better hope that they go somewhere where they're valued and they can fit right in, because a lot of teams is looking for coaches and looking for quarterbacks, and it doesn't look like there's a surplus of either or right now currently.
Yeah.
To this
Yeah, the one thing with Shador, I mean, he's going to have probably a shot to go to Cleveland, right? And, I mean, you have Stefanski and the situation with Watson. So, I mean, that's still a pretty good fit for him. I mean, they have some good talent around there. They're like kind of similar to the Raiders in that sense. I mean, you got Myles Garrett on defense, a respectable defense to some degree.
Great corner.
They're playing in a tough division too. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you have to deal with Baltimore every year, and you have to, know what Pittsburgh's going to do. And like, I don't know, it's just, but you walk into that situation, you have decent receivers, and like, I mean, he could end up being in a pretty good situation if he goes to Cleveland.
Yeah.
But it's Cleveland.
I do like Jackson Dart though. That's why when you brought him up,
I do like him. Yeah.
He might have the most cleanest mechanics that I've seen out of all of them, starting from footwork to the way he releases the ball, things like that. So that could be a dark horse quarterback that might go into later rounds that could surprise quite a few people. And like I said,
I do like him. Like, out of the top two guys, like, he's definitely the guy I would take a shot on, whether it's second or third round or something like that. And just, give him a shot. But that's the thing. If you bring in Ben Johnson, like he's got to have a guy. Maybe he has an eye on somebody that he wants to groom, and that's the one good thing about Vegas is like they have a ton of money. He could pick his own GM, and he's going to make a ton of money. They have a lot of money to spend on free agents. Decent draft pick. I mean, 6 is not a terrible pick. It's not going to get you the top 2 quarterbacks, but after that, I mean, you're in position to get a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, like Dart. But so Sam Darnold, I wouldn't want to take a chance on him. Like, I think I don't know. He's one of those guys. Like he had an unbelievable year, but like he almost needs to stay with that team or something, or go to another team that has like a quarterback whisperer, like a Shanahan or something like that.
It was the perfect situation with the Vikings.
It was.
Right? Anytime you throw to Justin Jefferson, you're gonna have career highs.
Oh,
right? Like
they're receivers, period. I mean, look at like all the way down the line. I mean, Addison's a great receiver. Like
it's a Biletnikoff winner.
Right.
What's that?
I say he was a Biletnikoff winner. Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
I mean, they were set, and he had a good offensive line for most of the year. They lost their left tackle. The guy they got from Jacksonville was okay, but like it seemed like his protection went down a little bit after the injury happened to their left tackle, and they did the best they could with it. But it's just like I don't know. That Rams game was ugly. That last one. That was.
Oh,
right.
The Lions game was too like Sam Darnold.
Yeah, well, both of them really. I mean, to play that poorly within a span of like a week or whatever it was is like it's tough because the guy's trying to make $100 million, and I don't know. I don't know if I would do it. I'd sign him to like a 2-year deal or something.
Yeah,
because it's like he changed so much of the dynamic going into the offseason because they were talking about things like teams just draft wise. JJ McCarthy probably would have been the number 1 pick in this draft, but his name was now floating because Sam Darnold gave that hope. But his play over the last 2 weeks, if I was Minnesota, hey, what's up with Jay?
And they got Daniel Jones too. They got him sitting around. I mean, he's not. I mean, the thing about Daniel Jones is like he's always been talented, but like you give a guy like McConnell a chance to help mold him. You can't tell me that Daniel Jones wouldn't be better. Like he's going to be a lot better quarterback in that system. He has better weapons than he ever had with the Giants outside of Barkley. But it's like I don't know. I was like pro Sam Darnold going to the Raiders like before the last 2 games, but then I saw that I'm like it was kind of bittersweet because I was rooting for him to do well because there was talk about the Raiders maybe trying to trade for JJ McCarthy too. Maybe trading their 1st round pick to Minnesota to take him if Darnold ended up being the guy there. Because what are they going to do? Keep both of those guys, and then they have Daniel Jones too. But now, like the way he played the last couple of weeks, I'm like, dude, that's going to be every week in Las Vegas. Because you don't have as many weapons like as you do there, and like it just that's the player he was with the Jets, unfortunately. And then he also, I mean, it's hard to believe that Carolina had both him and Baker Mayfield, and neither of them did anything.
Yeah. Crazy.
They couldn't get it out of each other's way when they were both there. I love Baker, man. He's another guy outside of Lamar Jackson. Like I thought the guy for the Raiders should have been Baker Mayfield after they got rid of Carr because he beat him. Like that was that whole Thursday night game. Rams played the Raiders. Raiders still had something to kind of play for at that point, and Baker outplayed Derek Carr and beat him after being with the team for like 4 or 5 days. Remember, he like got released or whatever. Right. He signs with the Rams because they needed a quarterback. He goes out there and beats them. I was like, dude, if you have any like sense of talent or whatever, you have to just sign him to a 1-year deal. If you don't have anyone, and and then they got rid of Carr, and then that was the guy. That was the guy. He could have had Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. Like he would have been. I'm not saying he would have done what he's done in Tampa Bay, but he would have had like some pretty good weapons to play with her, and they just blew it. And they could have got him cheap for a year, just like Tampa Bay did. And it's just like They have to get that stuff right this year, because I'm telling you, like you asked about Crosby earlier, like they at least have to make some kind of progress this year, or man, that guy is going to be dialed out, and he's going to want to go somewhere else. Like he's still like following the company, like he's a company man. He just stereotype, like he fits the mold of a Raider from head to toe. But I mean, he could turn like Jacobs, like within like say they're like get off to 0-5 start, man. He's gonna want out of here. He's not. It's so hard to give your heart and soul to an organization when if they say they swing and miss on another coach, they end up with like Pete Carroll or some like some other guy we're not even talking about right now, like Ron Rivera or something like that.
Right.
I mean, they could completely strike out on that. They could not get the quarterback. Like, dude, I would be out. Like, it's you're wasting the guy's prime years.
Yeah. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Up. This was a lot of fun. Where can people find you at?
Just on Twitter or X at Vegas_Matty. You could also follow at Football Contest. That's where you'll find out about all the Las Vegas football contests, and that's kind of my full-time, part-time job, because I'm done for the year. I get a few months off before we start signing people up, but all these football contests in Las Vegas, you could start signing up around Memorial Day weekend. And you can win a lot of money, guys, over $20 million on the line that they paid out a week ago. Which is pretty awesome. We had some guys win well over $1 million playing these contests, and there's a lot of prize money out there if you like picking survivor pools or picking 5 games against the spread. That's my bread and butter there. So go to footballcontest.com is our website.
I'm coming to Vegas this year. My girl went without.
She went without a beer or something.
I'll have to send you my card. I still got to figure out what I want this weekend, but I'll have to send you my card. Kind of see what you think.
Sounds good, guys. Right. It was great chatting.
Yeah, nice to talk to you.
All right, take care.
All right, hey, Brendan.
7-year-old. We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. It's right now we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Okay, do you feel like the talent you have here is good enough?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
What is your responsibility?
I'm just asking, do you think you've done enough to help Tom Brady?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.